Hello and welcome. This is TVC News Hour. I am Nnaemeka Obiaraeri.
And I am Busolami Tunwasheli. Headlines. President Muhammadu Buhari presents 8.6 trillion naira budget of consolidation to National Assembly. 4 suicide bombers killed, 6 injured in Maiduguri explosions. And outside Nigeria, 2 killed in Kabul as gunmen disguised as police officers attacked television station. And in sports, Super Eagles coach Janet Roll still waiting on 3 players in camp ahead of international friendlies. Details coming up shortly. Many thanks for joining us. President Muhammadu Buhari has formally presented an 8.6 trillion naira budget for 2018 to a joint session of the National Assembly.
Tagged the budget of consolidation, it has 16% increase from the 7.4 trillion naira appropriated in 2017. Buhari announced that the budget is projected at an oil price of $45 per barrel and an estimate of 2.3 million barrels per day. He added that the budget is further projected on an exchange rate of 305 to $1 to a real gross domestic growth of 3.5% and inflation rate of 12.5%.
The proposed 8.612 trillion naira of 2018 aggregate expenditure comprises a recurrent cost of 3.494 trillion naira, debt service of 2.014 trillion naira, C, statutory transfer of about 456 billion naira, D, sinking fund of 220 billion naira to retire maturing bond to local contractors, E, capital expenditure of 204.28 trillion naira, excluding the capital component of statutory transfers. 456.46 billion naira was provided in the 2018 budget for statutory transfers. The 5% increase over last year's provision is mainly due to increases in transfer to Niger Delta Development Commission and the Universal Basic Education Commission, which are related directly to the size of oil revenue.
A financial analyst, Nnaemeka Obiaraeri, is joining us now via Skype. Many thanks for joining us, Nnaemeka.
Thank you for having me.
Indeed. Let's start with the budget itself. 16% jump from what we had from 2017. Why is that?
I've looked at the budget briefly. 8.6 trillion naira budget, tagged budget of consolidation. Of course, the federal government of Nigeria anticipates that one of the best ways to spend our way out of recession and recovery is to spend more money. But we should also look at it. What are the breakdown of this sum? Interestingly, recurrent expenditure went up from 2.9 trillion to about 3.4 trillion. Capital expenditure remained at the same level of about 2.4 trillion. Debt servicing, interestingly, went up from 1.8 trillion to about 2.1 trillion. Now, what this simply translates is that recurrent expenditures are inched up. Simply means that we are going to be spending practically all our revenues in taking care of 1% of those who work for the civil service and those who work in the political sector as public sector employees. And while we are going to be spending about just 2.4 trillion in capital expenditure, deficit is almost at about 2.3 trillion. We are going to be borrowing to fund that gap. Now, the critical question is, what are we going to be doing in the non-oil sector to diversify the economy? Nothing much was said on that side. And again, if you look at it, the budget assumptions were much on the high side. Oil output of 2.3 million barrels a day. Crude oil benchmark is okay at $45 per barrel is okay. The 305 naira exchange rate to $1.
Nnaemeka, we're going to go into all that and go into the fundamentals in a while. But Ike has a question for you.
Nnaemeka, well, let me ask. The president, of course, has presented the 2018 budget now, and during his presentation, he did say that the 2018 budget is going to be, is expected to be a year of better outcome. Looking at the execution of the 2017 budget, do you agree that the 2018 budget will bring in a better outcome?
I don't expect much different from what happened last year. First of all, the impact of budget implementation can clearly be seen in the life of the average citizenry. And I kudos to the Honorable Speaker of the House of
Well, we do appear to be having... Hello,
Nnaemeka.
We do appear to be having some challenges there, technical challenges. We will try as hard as possible, if we can, to bring back Nnaemeka to further break down the 2018 budget and what is expected of the budget in the year 2018. This is TVC News Hour. Of course, we're talking about the budget presentation by President Muhammadu Buhari, and we still have financial analyst Nnaemeka Obiaraeri, of course, on Skype to talk to us more and further break it down for us to understand more. Obiaraeri, if you are there, I asked a question earlier that you tried to respond to. The president did say that 2018 is expected to be a year of better outcome, and I asked, looking at the way that the 2017 budget was implemented, are you confident that the president is right in saying that 2018 will be a year of better outcome?
Thankfully, this budget was presented earlier on than last year. I expect the ministries, the department and agencies to work closely with the various committees of the National Assembly, appropriation committees, to ensure that all the gray areas are tidied up and the budget passed in time for its implementation from January 2018. But it's not just in the implementation of the budget that is very, very key. It's also in the issue of fiscal responsibility, in the issue of blocking the leakages, both from the revenue side and reducing the grievous and monstrous overhead costs in the public sector. It is very, very saddening. If you look at the budget breakdown, debt services, we're going to be spending over 2.1 trillion naira in debt services, which is about $6.8 billion just to service debt, not to pay the principals. We are going to be spending over 13.49 trillion, $11 billion to service the public sector officials. Less than 1% of Nigerian population, civil servants and political office holders are going to be gulping $11.4 billion worth of the budget. Only 2.49 trillion naira, $8.16 billion was budgeted for capital expenditure. And if you look at it critically, Nigeria as a country requires about 25 to 30 billion dollars annually for us to be able to, halt the huge deficit in the infrastructure of our economy. I want to believe critically that the federal government of Nigeria will use this $8 billion to unlock private sector investments. I'm one of the very strong advocates of private-public partnership in development of infrastructure needs of this country, from power to rail transportation to the oil and gas sector. There need to be a lot of handshake across board between the federal government and the private sector. The federal government need to put in place programs and policies that will attract the private sector into the economy. And thankfully, you heard what the president said. He mentioned the fact that the ease of doing business in Nigeria has improved. It's only slightly. Because if you look at the absolute numbers, in 2014 it was 45% out of 100. 2015 it was 43%. 2016 it is 44% out of 100%. 2017 just slightly 44.66%. There is nothing to rejoice, because if you look at the regional average for sub-Saharan Africa, it is 50.43%. Nigeria ease of doing business Nigeria is far below the regional average of 50%. Botswana 64%. Mauritius 77%, South Africa 64%. We need to do a lot more
to bring about the ease of doing business in Nigeria, to be able to attract the over $20 billion annual foreign direct investment that we need to develop the critical infrastructures of this economy. And on the recurrent expenditure side, 2.4 trillion is a huge hole in our balance sheet. The federal government of Nigeria must find a way of reducing this. It is preposterous. If you look at the wage bill of the public sector, civil servants in 2015, it was 1.4 trillion. Now, as of 2017, it has gone up to about 1.85 trillion. Over 500 billion naira increase in overhead costs, even after they told us that they've removed over 60,000 ghost workers. We need to do a lot. There's a lot of stealing, there's a lot of corruption, there's a lot of pilferage going on in the public sector. Minor even mentioned there are a lot of holes in the system that need to be curtailed. The federal government, and I want to commend Mr. President. Mr. President is not omnipresent. Mr. President is not omniscience. He needs people to help him. His ministers, the head of the agencies, each and every one of them must buckle up. They must play their role critically. He is just a man and not God. There is a limit to what he can do. And to help him, I would suggest, in the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan, there was a robust provision to set in place a presidential monitoring committee in the presidency that will help to coordinate the physical applications of the things that we need to do. The Mr. President should go ahead and impanel a special advisory unit in the presidency that is made up of crack, knowledgeable, versatile Nigerians that understand the value, the whole gamut of the sectoral applications of things in Nigeria, so that they can help him to coordinate things. We have vast number of agencies, ministers are not doing what they're supposed to do. Mr. President should make sure that he impanels that presidential monitoring committee in the presidency that will help him to fish out those ministerial agencies that are not pulling their weight. Laggards should be removed from the system. Those who are not pulling their weight,
Nnaemeka, thank you. Thank you, Nnaemeka.
Yeah,
I'm sure many Nigerians may share your sentiment, thinking, remembering the fact that the president came in the first time and said he had to reduce overhead costs. Remember when he came in and reduced some ministries, and why we're having the overhead costs swell again this time around by 26 billion naira. Many Nigerians may share that sentiment. We thank you for your time and your thoughts on TVC News Hour. Nnaemeka Obiaraeri, financial analyst.